Hello, everybody. Trump's tariff tangle, the great tariff bamboozle. What a grand spectacle President Trump unfurls before us, waving the banner of populism with the gusto of a carnival barker. His latest brainchild? Conjuring revenue from thin air, or rather, from the bewildered brows of foreign trade partners. To cast aside the federal income tax, that implacable specter haunting every paycheck, and replace it with a glittering heap of tariffs on imports. A grand farce of Trump tax alchemy. One can't help but admire the audacity, if not the economics. The notion that tariffs, those venerable relics of a bygone era, can supplant the income tax is a proposition that defies both history and logic. It's as if Trump has decided to revive the economic theories of the horse and buggy age, blissfully unaware that the world has since invented the automobile. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, ever the loyal acolyte, has even dreamt up an external revenue service to collect these shiny new duties. An external revenue service sounds like a dystopian novel where the Ministry of Tariffs holds sway over the hapless populace. One shudders to think of the paperwork, the bureaucratic merry-go-round, and the rent-seeking opportunities that would arise from such a monstrosity. Let us pause and tip our hats to the sheer audacity of it all. The idea harks back to the good old days before 1913, when Uncle Sam filled his coffers with tariffs and excise taxes, living like a roguish pirate plundering foreign ships. But those were simpler times, when global trade was less a web and more a series of quaint handshakes. Today's economy, by contrast, is a Gordian knot of supply chains, with goods zipping across borders faster than a politician's promise. To slap hefty tariffs on this delicate dance is to invite chaos, tossing a wrench into a Swiss watch. Trump's vision, born anew after his 2024 triumph, has a certain primal appeal. Who among us hasn't cursed the IRS while wrestling with Form 1040? And what red-blooded MAGA American wouldn't cheer at the thought of sticking it to China with a tariff or two? It's a plan that sings to the heart: scrap the taxman, spank the evil foreigners, and set the working man free. The trouble with such populist confections is that they're all frosting and no cake. Peel back the sugary rhetoric, and you'll find a scheme so riddled with holes it could pass for Swiss cheese. Hurdles? Oh, they are legion. Fiscal first, the income tax brings in trillions, while tariffs, even at their most draconian, would struggle to match that haul, unless applied with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The economic consequences would be dire. High tariffs would spike prices on everything from asparagus to Zotax. Pinching the middle class, Trump claims to champion until they squeal. A body blow to the average Joe. And socially, picture the chaos as global trade partners, stung by our tariffs, retaliate with their own, turning the world market into a petulant schoolyard brawl. Lest we forget a deliciously ironic precedent. History whispers a warning through the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. That benighted escapade where Congress, in a fit of protectionist fervor, tanked global trade and deepened the Great Depression's misery. The Great Depression was a real hoot, wasn't it? Let's do that again, shall we? It was as if the nation decided to cure a headache by banging its skull against a wall. Trump's tariff revival risks a similar encore, with the U.S. economy playing the hapless patient. Trump's plan would be a fiscal and economic calamity, a middle-class catastrophe masquerading as a populist panacea. Trump's tariff fantasy is a policy Hail Mary pass, a desperate attempt to square the economic circle. One can almost hear the distant rumble of economists weeping, the soft whisper of trade partners plotting their retaliatory tariffs, and the anguished cries of middle-class consumers facing higher prices and diminished prospects. The joys of economic policymaking by wishful thinking. This plan is a splendid illusion, a dream of simplicity in a world too tangled for such nostrums. It promises liberation, but delivers a labyrinth, where the only certainty is that the American worker, that noble soul, will bear the brunt. A fiscal farce in numbers. Of the many quackeries and mountebankeries that plague the art of governance, none is quite so magnificent in its sheer, bold-faced imbecility as the notion of swapping the income tax for a system of tariffs. What a merry dance President Trump proposes, twirling us away from the dour embrace of income taxes and into the dazzling arms of tariffs. It's a plan so bold it could make a bookkeeper swoon. Yet, it's a scheme that trips over its own arithmetic with the grace of a drunken elephant. The federal income tax, grim reaper of paychecks, grand engine of pillage and platitude, raked in a colossal $2.4 trillion in 2024, the largest source of the federal budget's lifeblood. This mighty sum is the very life force of the beast, the fuel for its endless wars on liberty, common sense, and the public tranquility. Tariffs, by contrast, limp in with a measly $260 billion, a sum so paltry it barely registers as a rounding error in Uncle Sam's ledger. To believe the latter can replace the former is to believe a candle's glow could silence the sun. Yet, our masters in Washington, ever eager to promise the bourgeoisie a free lunch they themselves have no intention of paying for, persist in this fantasy. We are told that with a bit of aggressive tinkering, a new tariff here and a comprehensive scenario there, the trick can be done. So, Trump, ever the showman, waves his wand and promises tariffs to dwarf this gap. His boldest proposals, a 20% global tariff paired with a 60% wallop on Chinese goods, might conjure up $4.5 trillion over a decade, a figure that sounds grand until you stack it against the $30+ trillion juggernaut of income tax revenue over the same period. It's optimism drunk on delusion. Even his more modest plans, expected to yield $167 billion annually, cover less than a quarter of the cost of sparing folks earning under $200,000 from income taxes. The math is as unforgiving as a tax auditor's stare, a mathematical pratfall of epic proportions. But here is where the affair becomes a perfect little koan of economic folly. To bridge this gap, Trump would need tariffs so towering, perchance exceeding 100%, that Congress would sooner approve a national holiday for illegal migrants. Such stratospheric duties would send the price of imported gewgaws, from iPhones to ibuprofen, soaring into the stratosphere, unleashing inflationary havoc that would make the middle class wince harder than at a dentist's grin. And let us not forget the global trade partners, who, far from applauding, would retaliate with their own tariffs, turning the world market into a petulant, tit-for-tat tantrum. But here's the cosmic punchline. Tariffs are a self-sabotaging lot. Raise them high, and imports dwindle as foreign goods become worth more than common sense in an election year. Fewer imports mean less revenue, a paradox as elegant as it is ruinous. It's like trying to squeeze water from a stone by hitting it harder. The effort defeats itself. The U.S., tethered to global trade for everything from microchips to minivans, cannot simply wall itself off without sparking chaos in its own supply chains. For the government, in its frantic effort to grasp this revenue, finds that the very act of grasping makes the revenue disappear. You see, the whole game of a tariff is to make foreign goods more expensive. And when you make things more expensive, people, even the most dedicated spendthrifts, tend to buy fewer of them. It is a beautiful paradox, a lesson in the futility of effort. The more you raise the tariff wall, the fewer goods will attempt to climb it. The higher the rate, the lower the trade volume. You are trying to fill a bucket that shrinks with every cup of water you pour into it. The effort to solve the problem is the very thing that makes the problem unsolvable. And so, Trump finds himself in a delightful bind. To get the money, he must tax the imports. But to tax the imports, is to drive them away, and with them the very money he seeks. He is left stranded, a fisherman who has drained the sea to make his catch easier. The goods vanish, the revenue evaporates, and the common man, who is promised a tax-free paradise, is instead handed a bill for vastly more expensive computers and automobiles, all while the retaliatory fury of our trading partners rains down upon him. Thus, the scheme collapses not merely under the weight of its own numerical absurdity, but from a more elegant cosmic joke. It is a system at war with itself, a snake consuming its own tail for nourishment. One can only sit back, light a joint, and chuckle at the spectacle. For in this perfect, self-negating mechanism, we find the very essence of modern governance, a furious and elaborate attempt to achieve the impossible, with the bill for the inevitable failure to be sent, as always, to the poor suckers who are foolish enough to believe it can succeed. In this grand fiscal vaudeville, Trump's tariff dream is a jest delivered with gusto, but doomed to fall flat. The numbers, those stern arbiters of reality, refuse to bend to his populist poetry, leaving us to chuckle at the audacity while bracing for the inevitable encore of economic sobriety.